The House panel investigating the January the 6th Capitol insurrection voted today to recommend contempt charges against former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. No surprise there. I saw this was heading in that direction. It's your man Diamond K in here. Of course, the Diamond K Show on firetelevision.com. Whatever legacy he thought he left in the White House, this is his legacy now. Committee Chairman Beanie Thompson of Mississippi said with regards to Meadows. Meadows is a former Republican congressman from North Carolina. And in his opening remarks, the committee chairman said his former colleagues singling him out for criminal prosecution because he won't answer questions about what he knows about a brutal attack on our democracy. That's his legacy. Powerful words. But words are just words. We also need some action. This committee voted 9-0 to move forward with criminal charges against Mark Meadows. Of course, he declined to appear for a deposition last week. That is part of the reason why he's in this situation. Lawmakers had planned to ask about Trump's efforts to overturn the election in the weeks before the insurrection. This also includes Meadows' outreach to states and his communications with members of Congress. So Trump's former top White House aide is uniquely situated to provide information. He could help with this, but he's choosing not to. And he had an official role in the White House and an unofficial role related to Trump's reelection campaign. So the panel said in a 51-page report, which they released yesterday, in this report, it detailed the questions that the lawmakers have about the thousands of emails. Or you know how Republicans feel about emails, right? They take emails very seriously. So they have these thousands of emails and text messages from Meadows, and he provided these to the committee before he ended his cooperation. So initially he was cooperating. Obviously, Trump said something, and cooperation stopped. So it's 6,600 pages of records taken from personal email accounts and about 2,000 text messages. So a lot of stuff to go through. Panel, of course, has not released all of the documents, but the report says they include exchanges about Meadows' efforts to help Trump overturn his defeat in the presidential election, communications with members of Congress and organizers of the rally held the morning of the insurrection. And also they included some frantic messages among aides and others as this violent attack unfolded that day. So January the 6th last year, or January 6th this year. So that's all stuff that's in all of this, and we're going to get a chance to look at this at some point in time. Liz Cheney, the committee's vice chair, detailed today a series of text messages that Meadows received on January 6th from a bunch of folks, including Fox News anchors, including Donald Trump Jr. In the text, allies, these are friends of Trump, people in Trump's inner circle, attempted to reach out to Trump through Chief of Staff, former Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, urging him to take action against the violence that was taking place outside and inside the Capitol. He's got to condemn this ASAP, Trump Jr. wrote. The Capitol Police tweet is not enough. Meadows responded by saying, "I'm pushing it hard. I agree. Hey, Mark, the president needs to tell the people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy. Fox News host Laura Ingraham text Mark Meadows. This is on January the 6th. Please get him on TV, destroying everything you have accomplished. Bill Killimeade wrote, Brian Killimeade, excuse me. As part of the list of questions for Meadows, the panel says it wants to know more about whether Trump was engaged in discussions regarding the response of the National Guard, which was delayed for hours, if you remember that. Delayed for hours as the violence escalated and the rioters beat police that were guarding the Capitol. Right? You remember how this was going on. You remember how crazy this looked on TV. This wasn't normal, an everyday occurrence, January the 6th. So the documents provided by Mark Meadows included an email sent to an unidentified person saying that the guard would be present to protect pro-Trump people, panel said, and that more would be available on standby. The committee did not release any additional details about the email. Looking forward to seeing who was that email sent to. So in a Monday letter to Thompson, Meadows' attorney said that the contempt vote would be unjust because Meadows was one of Trump's top aides and all presidents should be afforded executive privilege to shield their private conversations. This is not just a regular private conversation. Crime was attached to these conversations. So they can't hide behind that. You can't hide behind that. Can you imagine if Bill Clinton was trying to hide behind this kind of stuff, right? I don't know. It just looks really, really bad. I think that this is going to continue to unfold. Meadows himself sued the panel, asking a court to invalidate two subpoenas that he says are overly broad and unduly burdensome. Really? Really? That would be an interesting thing if you could sue the panel, sue the committee for, can you take this subpoena back? They want too much information. It's too burdensome for me. Many of the questions center on Trump's efforts to overturn the election in the weeks before the insurrection, including Meadows' outreach to states and his communications with members of Congress. Too burdensome for him to get into all of that. The panel, mind you, has already interviewed almost 300 witnesses and lawmakers. They say they say a series of hearings early next year to make many of their findings public. This is going to be interesting. What happens next? We're going to see. This is going to go to another vote. But this Mark Meadows thing is not over. I think that his dilemma is only going to increase. So this panel is recommending contempt for 62-year-old Mark Meadows. What is going to happen next? The committee voting to recommend this prosecution. I think that this prosecution is going to happen. I mean, maybe it's going to be summertime. Maybe it's going to be even later than that. The contempt resolution will now go to the House floor for a vote, and it's going to be down party lines. I think that there's no surprise there. Members of this House Select Committee investigating this January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol, right? I mean, the fact that we have to keep saying this over and over again, can you imagine if the members of Black Lives Matter ran up in the Capitol, blasted hip hop music and saying things that made some white people uncomfortable? Would these same Republicans be dismissing this? No, they wouldn't. They wouldn't. This is the U.S. Capitol, right? You love the Constitution, but you don't love the Capitol, right? So members of the House Select Committee investigating the January 6th attack on the Capitol have shown that they are willing to pursue some criminal contempt referrals against some of these witnesses that are taking their subpoenas for a joke. These witnesses who refuse to comply with the panel's subpoenas. They try and take it to the next level. Shout out to them. Let's see what else happens. I mean, vote schmote, right? What else you gonna do about it? Let's see you really do something. Let's see the DOJ really do something, right? Any individual who is found liable for contempt of Congress is then guilty of a crime that may result in a fine and between 1 and 12 months in prison. But this process is rarely invoked and rarely leads to jail time, right? Very rare. But it's also very rare that people attack the U.S. Capitol. All right, so the committee has approved a criminal contempt report against Steve Bannon, Trump ally, in October after he refused to comply with the subpoena deadline. So we're going to see what happens here and definitely follow this. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, TikTok, at The Diamond K Show, at On Fire Television Network. So I'll be back here later on with more of the news.